And I think that the fear is that something's going to go wrong and then I'm automatically going to get a bad review and the people aren't going to like it. That's absolutely not the case.
Right.
We see time and time and time again, some of our best reviews are when something goes wrong. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore. We got a Whiskey Wednesday segment with my main man, Mr. Dave Savolich. We missed.
Awesome.
That was, hey,
it's not perfect.
Hey,
Nothing's
we're
perfect.
on number 4 episode of Whiskey Wednesday. That's why we missed. All right, guys. These episodes are short, sweet, to the point. We are going to talk about a couple things going on in our world. Dave's got a couple hot topics in the short-term rental world that we're going to talk about. We're going to answer some of your questions. And so if you do have questions, as always, a reminder, send those in and either comment, DM us on the platforms you're watching or listening on. We'll make sure that we answer those in an upcoming episode. So what do we got on the agenda?
Let's talk a little bit. Well, first of all, obviously we've been a few weeks now with our new studio here.
Yeah.
What makes somebody buy a particular type of whiskey?
Yeah, it's
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it like taste? Is it bottle? Is it like, wow, that's cool
Well, once
looking?
you taste it, right? But when I ever buy a first one, I just look at the bottle and the
Yeah,
name. Like
right.
I like the name and the bottle, and
Yeah.
I go for the what I think are
coolest
coolest
looking.
ones. Yeah,
Right.
And
Yeah.
then obviously once you've tasted it and you like it, you'll go with it. But honestly, I'll go through the liquor stores or distilleries and visit them, and I'm like, I like that name. I like that.
Right.
I like the bottle.
Yeah.
I like the name,
Yeah.
and something different about them or
Right.
something that I like or drawn to. That's how I choose.
Well, and you look at them and you're like, okay, whoa, that one looks cool. Like I love that bottle. So I totally agree. Like there is some definite.
Then you pop them and the top and you start to sip them and you're like, sometimes you
then
like
you-
them, sometimes you don't.
right.
But
Then
then if
you
you do,
just-
you keep buying them.
Then you just put them on your shelf and be like, hey, that's
you
cool.
throw a light
bottle.
behind them and you leave them up there.
There's a reason why it's full.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not that good,
Some of them are we've drinking them down a little bit more than others.
Exactly. So if anybody has a unique or really cool looking bottle,
Let us know. DM us, and
because we
we'll
would
get it. Yeah,
we'd
and
love to get added to our collection.
It'll
So,
be our unofficial sponsor for the day.
Yeah. So anyways, all right, let's talk about a little bit of a trending topic. It's come up on a couple podcasts recently that you did, and it's really about communication with when things go bad or challenges occur at your short-term rental with a guest. What's the best way to handle it? You know what I mean? And there's a there's a whole bunch of ways that we can handle it, and maybe let's talk about a couple examples and really the best way to handle those issues.
Yeah, and I think the fear for a short-term rental owner is we know how important 5-star reviews are,
Right.
and how important that guest experience is to our long-term success with short-term rentals, and so we assume that if something goes wrong, we're dead in the water, right? And that is absolutely not the case. Things are going to go wrong in a short-term rental. They're properties. Things break. Things happen. And something's going to go out. We'll give some examples of that. But some of your best reviews will come from how you handle those issues. First of all, it starts with the communicating with those guests and that guest experience right when they start to book a property. You start to build that relationship. You start to build that trust that, hey, we're here as a host. We want you to have this amazing experience. Communication is key, making it easy to communicate and making sure you get back with people in a timely manner. And then if something goes wrong and you actually jumped on it and you made them feel like that problem was important to you, right? That hey, I understand, Dave, this is your vacation. The AC went out. I've got 3 guys that I've got coming over. We've got other options. We're going to make sure that we bring you over fans, whatever. However you handle it to get it taken care of, and they feel like you're on top of it, they're going to be very, very appreciative of that. People understand things go wrong. What happens is they can be some of your biggest raving fans, best reviews, repeat customers. And it all depends on how you handle it. And a lot of it is just communicating and making them feel like and taking the actions necessary to make them feel like that is super important to you. When you're on vacation and it's 100 degrees outside and the AC goes out, like that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a host that is like, I called the contractors and they can't get in there for 3 days, and so sorry, made the call. I'll let you know when they can get back.
Right.
That doesn't make me feel like you care, right? If you make them feel like you care and you're jumping through hoops to make sure that the problem's taken care of, however minor it may be, right? Sometimes the remote doesn't work and it could be just a battery change, but they're like, hey, I wanted to watch the game today and I can't get the TV working, and you make it a big deal to help them fix it. They are going to appreciate it.
That,
they're going to support you. They're going to give you great reviews. And I think that the fear is that something's going to go wrong, and then I'm automatically going to get a bad review and the people aren't going to like it. That's absolutely not the case.
Right.
We see time and time and time again, some of our best reviews are when something goes wrong.
I had an example actually yesterday. My property manager called and said, hey, the hot tub is only about 80 degrees. And the guest had called and said, hey, is there something wrong or what's the situation? And so one, I appreciate the property manager reaching out ASAP. I appreciate that the property manager was already working with the guest. But the reality was, and it was I think just being honest with them, and I told the property manager to make sure they convey this, is 2 days before the guest had checked out and they had been in there for a week. So my spa cleaners needed to drain the hot tub and make sure that it was clean, which they do every so often. When they put the new water in, it was at 75 degrees or whatever, and it needed time to heat up.
Right.
So I told them, I'm like, hey, listen, please make sure you tell the guest. They wanted to make sure that the water was super clean before they checked in. They just drained it. They refilled it. It's all clean, ready to go. It's just going to take a little time for it to heat up. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, give it, a few hours. Tomorrow morning, they should be good to go. And I also said, hey, listen, if you sense any, if they're unhappy or whatever, I'm happy. I would love to give them a gift certificate to the local restaurant or something. Just please let me know and I'll send it down or I'll email it to them and we'll make sure we take care of them.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's not needed, but I also wanted to make sure that I let the property manager know if they sense that at all, hey, I'm willing to do that. And just being upfront with them.
And that's a great point. Like there's a lot of things you can do with a gift card, buying them dinner, everything else. Almost always we'll send them like a box of cookies, right? Or something local from a local bakery and say, hey, we're so sorry this happened. We're on top of it. We're taking care of it. Hey, here's our favorite cookies from wherever.
Right.
And you send them a box of cookies. It costs you $20, right? And we almost always do that regardless of whether they were happy, unhappy, and they're like, no big deal. Most people are like, the minute you address it, most people are like, hey, no big deal. I totally get it. There are times where you have something major happen, like AC going out, and you can't fix it for 3 days, and it's in the middle of the summer. Rather than saying, hey, I'm going to give you a free night or whatever else, what we typically will do is we always work with property managers, and they typically have other properties in those areas. And we say, hey, listen, you find somewhere else for them to go. We'll give them a full refund. We want them to have a great stay. We understand that they have 1 week vacation this year, and I don't want 3 days of it to be miserable because it's too hot in my property. And we've had that happen. And where we've actually moved them, put them in a different property. I didn't get any revenue, and the people still gave us a full review, a 5-star review. They want to come back to our property, and because of what we did to take care of the problem. And so it all comes down to communicating, and then not just communicating either. I think the misconception is that you could, as long as you just tell them what's going on, they need to feel like you actually care about fixing the problem, right? And that it's an urgent problem to you. If they called about it, it's an urgent problem to them, right? We always say, hey, listen, every problem is a 911. Like we need to treat it as if it's a 911, and they will appreciate us treating it like it's a 911, right? And so I think that's where it comes into how do you solve some of the problems is make sure that you approach it, that is how you're going to handle it, and then you will almost never get a bad review from it, right?
Well, and then I also want to take a step back, and that is, think of how important it is to find the right property manager that can deliver that message and take care of it. And I know sometimes you're self-managing and sometimes you're not, but that's why we emphasize so much on the importance of getting a good property manager, because I know that the property manager I have, they're right on it, and they will go over there and they'll handle it and they'll do it. If you're not, confident in the property manager you've hired and that they're going to handle it, and you're worried that they're not going to handle it properly, you might want to rethink that property manager. So in our masterclass, we really teach that, and we really dive into questions to ask and really decide, hey, who's the best property? Because the manager is super important in that aspect of things too. Yeah, and
it's a great point. Is they're delivering the experience that we're setting up, and they're a huge part of that delivery. They're the first line of communication. And I know a very successful property manager. She runs a good business as far as numbers go and everything else. But her philosophy is, I'm available from 8 to 5, and outside of those hours, unless the house is burning down, don't contact me, or I'll let you know, or I'll get back with you at 8 in the next morning. Her attitude is, and belief is, and right or wrong, I don't agree with it, but everybody has a different way of view of the world. But her attitude is, there's very few things that can't be addressed the next day. And I think that the guest needs to feel like they've got a 24/7 concierge that they can call, because again, if I was out for the day and I showed up at my beach property and she's managing it and the AC's out and I can't sleep because I go to turn my AC down at 6 or 7 o'clock at night and it's 80 degrees in there and that means I can't sleep that night, right? Because I want it cooled down when I go to bed. Right. Well, to me, that's a big deal. That affects my experience on that vacation, and I would appreciate somebody helping me try to solve the problem. Maybe it's simple. How often have you gone into a house that you're vacationing at, and the systems just look different? We don't know how to use the thermostat or whatever else, and so or
the remotes on the TV are sometimes so confusing. I mean, I know our guests have called and said, I can't figure this out. And they literally are there in 15 minutes and they're like, yeah, we got to figure it out.
And it's a kind of a common joke among property managers. We speak at a lot of conventions. They're like, oh, I don't know how many calls we get about remotes and thermostats and everything else. But it really shouldn't be a joke, right? It is because you go somewhere and it's unfamiliar, but you do want to use those things. And it's not always clear in the welcome books and the instructions or whatever else. And so as a hospitality, manager and that person that is that go-between on that communication, just take pride in saying, hey, listen, I'm going to help you regardless of what you need. If the remote's not working, call me. If the thermostat's not working, call me. And people appreciate that, right? And that just raises the bar for that customer experience. But also, I'm kind of getting off on the tangent on how to deliver that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be issues. If you own properties, you're going to have something break and you're going to have something that doesn't work and you're going to have to address it. How you address it is going to be, whether you get the 3 or 4 star review and a ding on it, or whether they say, hey man, I've got 5-star review. I can't believe how they handled this problem. In fact, our next vacation, we're coming back because we have confidence now that if there is a problem, you guys are on top of it and you're going to take care of us, and people appreciate it.
We're part of the hospitality industry. I mean, the short-term rental is a hospitality, mainstay now. And think of how many times you stayed in a hotel, and it doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while, the air conditioner isn't working very well. And you call the front desk and they're like, no problem, we'll have somebody up in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And they come up and they're going to figure it out, or they're going to move your rooms or whatever. That's the same type of service they want when they're in your short-term rental as well.
Absolutely. So, this is the time of, guest expectations are higher than they've ever been, for good reason, right? This is more popular than it's ever been. And, if you want to set yourself apart and operate at the top of the market, you've got to do it in all aspects of the hospitality game. There is one thing that can make or break your success with short-term rentals, and that's your ability to provide your guests with an amazing night's rest. We're taking all of the guesswork out of selecting the perfect mattress system. Personally, I have these custom mattresses in every one of my short-term rentals. We love them so much that we even got them in our own personal homes here in Utah. So visit VodysseySleepSystem.com and use the promo code podcast. It's all caps at checkout to get 55% off.
Well, let's jump into a question. And this is a question that surprisingly we get more than I would think. And I think we just take for granted because we do this in and out every single day. But the question is, where can listeners sign up for your course and purchase the Vodyssey program? It's a good question. I mean, we just assume that, okay, everybody knows because we have a process, we have a marketing team, and kind of we go down that path. So
the answer is
talk about that.
You can't.
Right.
Right. It's one of those, and we would love to invite you into the group. It's not something you can just go online and purchase. So we do require a conversation with our team, with our strategy coaches, to really discuss where you're at, what you're trying to do, making sure that this is the right vehicle for you to reach those goals. We have a lot of experience in this vehicle, and choosing the right vehicle, passive income vehicle to build long-term wealth is a really important decision. And so we're going to share the pros and the cons of short-term rental investing with somebody. And that's why we want to have those conversations. And then ultimately, if it does seem like the right fit, and it does seem like that we could, our mastermind, our coaching program would be beneficial, we extend an invitation to join, and we run down that road, right? And so it's not something you can go just find on Vodyssey.com. You can find plenty of places to go book a call with our team.
Right.
And that's the first step,
part,
right? And so if it is something you're interested in, and you're right, we do kind of get this a little bit more often than we kind of assume, but there's the step is to go book a call with our team, have that discussion, take an hour and really get your questions answered. Let us dive into where you're at, what you're trying to do, and decide if, from our point of view, if we feel like we could be, help you reach those goals and help you reach those outcomes. And if that's the case, then we'll talk about what it looks like to work together.
It's key too to make sure that, if you're interested to know kind of the way that the call's set up, it's about a 45-minute to an hour call.
Yeah.
And it's really, we just dive in and really try to understand where you're at, where you're going, what your goals are, what your why is. Yeah. If this is an asset class that you're considering and you want to go down, if you're committed, do you have the time? Do you have the money? Do you have, all these things? If that's the case, then obviously we go to the next step and we talk a little bit about Vodyssey and kind of the program and all about that. But we also, I think it's super important. Most people have a partner, a spouse, a husband, wife, maybe another partner, maybe a son, somebody that's in it with them. We want them to be on board too. Yeah. And the success rate of this asset class goes way up when both are on board and supporting each other. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So first steps, book that strategy session. And strategy sessions are, in my opinion, a little bit overused, and they just are flat sales pitches, right? It's like, hey, let's get on the phone and I'm gonna sales pitch you. And that is not what our strategy coaches are there to do. Yeah. They're all investors themselves. We don't have one strategy coach that is a hired salesperson. They are investors. They were in your shoes months before. They own properties. They're in our program. They're running down this road. So they're very qualified to talk about what this road looks like. And that's the ultimate thing that we want people to do. Like I repeat all the time, I want people walking into this game with their eyes wide open. I want them to be willing to roll up their sleeves and put in the work and the effort and understand what that takes before they start, so that they know that, hey, listen, I'm committed to a 3 to 5 year process here. And I'm committed to this road I'm going to run down to build what I say I want, right? Because sometimes that's not in alignment. Sometimes somebody says they want this one thing, but they're only willing to put in this much effort. And if those aren't in alignment, we're going to point that out and say, this might not be the right fit, And so it truly is a strategy session. So if you're considering getting into the game, not even, hey, do I want somebody to work with to help me accelerate and avoid some pitfalls and mistakes and accelerate my progress? Not even that. Is let's talk about, is this the right asset class for you? Because that's what that conversation's about.
Well, buddy, that's all we got today, man. Okay. I appreciate the good insight. And let's wrap it up.
Okay, let's wrap it up. All right, guys. Well, listen, we always appreciate you joining us. We know how valuable your time is, and we appreciate you spending it with us. At the end of every episode, I ask you 2 favors. The first one is, if you like this show and you know somebody else who would like these types of conversations, share the show. Those things help us a lot. Spread the word and spread the message and have these great conversations for people to walk into this game with their eyes wide open. And then if you have more than 30 seconds, give us a thumbs up, like, review, whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And the final and most important thing that you can do today is to go pick that one thing you can do, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, brother.